Good morning. Well, the only thing I can do is refer it back to experiences I had. It is not uncommon that the Chinese will call or the Russians will call. You keep your enemies close, and they would call and say, look, should we be concerned? Is there something going on? The questions, there are more questions than there are answers. And the questions are, okay, exactly what did he say? Did he say, I would give you a heads up if something was happening? What I typically did was I would say, well, this is what the U.S. expects of you. And if you don't want any trouble, this is what you should do. I would immediately give that right out to the interagency so that every agency head saw the call that I had. And then I'd pick up the phone and call the president and say, I just talked to the Chinese. This is what they're thinking. This is what I said. Is there anything further you want me to do? It's that last part that's so important. And the reason why I say that's important is I talked about in my book, there were multiple members of the administration that thought they knew better than the president. That's a very dangerous thing. There is only one president at a time. And for you to go and have the call with the Chinese, there's nothing wrong with that. For you not to tell the president that you had that call with the Chinese and for him not to be aware, that's the problem, is because you want him to be all informed and at his best to proceed. You don't have the back of the Chinese, you have the back of your president. And that's the part that has all the questions.
Madam Ambassador, Jonathan Swan of Axios reports that, again, this is all based on anonymous sources. The Woodward book, these reports, so I take all of it with a grain of salt. I know you do too. But he reports that Milley was acting on the instructions of then Defense Secretary Mark Esper. If that were the case, is what Milley did appropriate?
Well, first of all, I think that you're right. These tell-all books, it's like there's one a week. And I think that as much as we're asking for answers from Milley, you have to ask the same answers from Woodward. They don't get to just say this and it be true. We have to ask Woodward where he got this from, or else we don't need to be justifying this. If Esper asked him to do this, it still goes back to the fact that Milley and Esper both should have had a conversation with the president and said, we have intel that the Chinese are worried we're going to start some sort of war action. We're going to give them a call. This is what we're thinking. Are you okay with that? The whole part is to not have communication with the president, to not discuss with him what you are doing is a real issue, especially if the Chinese think that you're about to go to war with them. That's no small issue. That's the issue that you bring in the commander-in-chief. So there are more questions than there are answers. I think we need to get answers to that. Look, everybody's suspicious of Milley when we already look at what happened in Afghanistan, but that's questions on Biden. Did Milley tell you don't do this in Afghanistan and you overruled him? And, I think the fact that Biden is going on this COVID mandate, spree around the country is only him further distracting from what's going on in Afghanistan, what's going on in the border. Those are two very dangerous situations that need to be dealt with. And I think Biden's getting a total free pass on both of them.
Well, that last point is very well taken, because the hearing on September 28th, a Tuesday, was all designed to set up for what about the drawdown in Afghanistan and how did that happen? And a lot of that is being lost now, Madam Ambassador. And I would imagine, unless we get answers or a transcript from the conversation itself, half that hearing could be consumed by this as opposed to the chaos in Kabul.
Well, the first thing I'll say is the reason Biden has full faith in Milley is because Milley didn't do this to Biden. If Milley had done this to Biden, he would be all upset and have the same issues and the same concerns. And look, if you'll do it to one president, you'll do it to another. This is where protocols need to be clarified. This is where, a president needs to go in there and say, I don't care what it is. If you hear from one of our adversaries, if you make a call to one of our adversaries, I want to know about it. I want to know what's going to happen. That's the part that is missing. I'll tell you on the transcripts, I'm very cautious about releasing transcripts just because, look, none of our allies, none of our adversaries will talk to us if they know it's going to all go out to the American public. There is, a lot of that is national security, and you have to be able to hold that. So I'm not quick to say, release the transcript. I am quick to say, pull Milley in, pull Esper in, let's get answers on Afghanistan. Let's get answers on protocols and how you're handling our adversaries going forward. Biden deserves to know it. Trump deserves to know it. And the American public deserves to know the protocols that are in place when an adversary calls.
Thank you
Good
for
point.
coming on.
Thank you so much. We appreciate you.
Nikki Haley, thank you. Come back soon.